So let's begin the process of self-regulation. And I'll start with this, is that self-regulation is relaxation. Excuse me. But relaxation is rarely self-regulation. All the technology that we have in the field of mental health for relaxation, autogenics, guided visualization, progressive muscle relaxation, diaphragmatic breathing, all of that technology, all of it requires the dissociation from activities of daily living to achieve the relaxation. It's like our clients are going down the anxious highway of their lives, and somebody tells them that they need to go see a mental health professional. They come see us, and we teach them to pull off into a rest area and go, oh, which is great if a person develops a discipline of that. But it's not enough. It's insufficient. Self-regulation, conversely, is the ability to do minimal relaxation. The purpose of self-regulation is not to achieve profound relaxation. The purpose of self-regulation is to interrupt sympathetic nervous system dominance. That's it. That's its only purpose, is to not let you, it is to get you out of your threat response system. And that takes 1 to 2 seconds while fully engaged in activities of daily living. It's not taking a break. So before I get into talking about how to do that, I want to introduce you to this. This is something that I show to every one of my clients, and it is called the Yerkes-Dodson, Yerkes-Dodson, Yerkes-Dodson curve, illustrating the Yerkes-Dodson law. Originally published in 1908 with rat studies, thousands of studies. Psychology, performance, business have done, have demonstrated this over and over and over. And it shows the relationship between performance, and that's both cognitive and motor performance, on, what's a cool color? Let's use something different than red. How about magenta? This shows performance here on the y-axis and energy in the body on the x-axis. And it shows us here with no energy in your body, you don't perform very well. You don't run very fast when you're sleeping. When you are completely and totally relaxed, you are diminished in motor functioning. You still have some cognitive functioning. And what it shows is that as the energy goes up, so goes up the performance. Up, 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 until we reach maximal. And then look at what happens if you continue to add energy, continue to stay in that state of that technical term that I use of jacked upness. After you've gone beyond maximal motor and cognitive functioning, you see that there's a precipitous drop off here. You lose those skills. That's a big deal. And some really, over the past 15 years, there's been some augmentation of this curve, and what the researchers have found is that the more important the task, or the more perceivedly important or demanding the task, the more the curve moves over here. So if you're taking your licensing exam and that's really important to you, that means that you can tolerate less. The curve looks like this. The more important it is, the more that moves over to the left. So you can tolerate less energy in your body before you start losing the capacity. The more mundane and more rote the task, the more you can do it with some competency and still be jacked up. But the more important that is, the more deliberate that you need to be in those situations, the more you need to dial that back down. And that's what this is so important. This is quality of life stuff. I mean, forget about treatment. This is quality of life. And what it's showing, what I try to show my clients is that for the rest of your life, there is rarely ever going to be a situation where you need more energy to do a good job. It's always going to be, the more important that task, the more you need to dial down into it. So you got language skills, so you got intelligence, so you got creativity, so you got stamina, so you got agility. You know, and that is with performance. If you're a musician, if you're an actor, if you are an athlete, you want to do a better job at something, you want to maximize, relax into it. And that's counterintuitive, because what most of us do when we want to do a good job is, I'm going to do a good job, I'm going to do a good job. And we're over here. Oops, I did it again. So using the same curve, I want to also show what self-regulation is. What self-regulation is finding yourself over here somewhere and coming back over here. And doing that in 1 to 2 seconds. That's it. That's all self-regulation is beginning to develop a monitoring capacity with your physiology to know when you're over here, and then to engage a strategy, and I'm going to go over several of them here with you, to get yourself back over onto this, not all the way back down here, not to profound relaxation, just over here on the left-hand side of Yerkes-Dodson. Bloop, bloop. And being able to do that consistently throughout the day, of catching yourself on the right, getting back on the left. That's I think, a nice conceptualization of what we're trying to do. Staying over here equals compulsivity and violation of one's integrity. Getting back over here equals the ability to remain intentional. That's what we're doing with forward-facing trauma therapy. Okay. So, as I've kind of intimated, that was the word I was looking for. It was pretty cool. I couldn't think of the word, and so I intentionally relaxed the muscles of my body, and there it came. As I intimated previously, is interoception is a pretty important process in this. And what is interoception? It's this right here. It is a felt sense of what's going on with your physiology right now in real time. Is the ability to know what's going on in your body. And to do that, you can't do it cognitively. And that sounds a little weird, but it is, interoception is you taking your awareness out of your head, out of the digital, and putting it in the analog, which means, for those of you that have a little bit of a philosophical background, it means you have to cross the Cartesian chasm. You got to get out of your head into your body. So that is what we're doing here. Is we're teaching our clients how to start to do biofeedback without all of those wires and cords. I mean, that's what interoception is. It is biofeedback. It is the awareness of your physiology in real time. And then interoception, did I have that slide? I should have a package here in front of me. No, I don't. Interoception plus, let me get this over here. Interoception plus acute relaxation equals self-regulation. Those are the two components. Interoception, monitoring, the ongoing awareness of your physiology. And then when you find yourself over on the right-hand side of Yerkes-Dodson, you are doing an acute relaxation process, 1 to 2 seconds, bloop, dropping yourself back over onto the left-hand side, and then going on and doing something else, and then checking back 2 or 4, 6 or 8 minutes later. And if you're on the right-hand side, get back to the left. That's what self-regulation looks like. So since that slide's up there, I'll do it this way. Oh, there it is. Yeah. And I think I said this specifically previously, but let me do it again. You cannot have any stress, including post-traumatic stress, in a relaxed muscle body. It's physiologically impossible to have symptoms of stress in a relaxed muscle body. So you are resolving trauma. Doesn't matter how many times you've been raped or abused or combat or whatever else. You go forward today in a relaxed muscle body, you don't have PTSD anymore. That's pretty freaking simple. Challenging to get it done, but it's pretty simple. Now you've noticed I have intentionally not used the language of mindfulness. And the reason why is, let me go ahead and bring this up, because a lot of people say, oh, he's just talking about mindfulness. Well, yes and no. There's good mindfulness and there's bad mindfulness. Good mindfulness, born of the Buddhist tradition, John Kabat-Zinn mindfulness, rests on 2 pillars. And those 2 pillars are calm body, observant mind. You cannot get a calm body staying in your mind. So listen to the conundrum there. You can't do mindfulness in the mind. To do mindfulness, you got to practice interoception. And that means you got to leave your mind. You got to come out of your mind into your body. You got to monitor your physiology. You got to turn off the threat response system, because in order to have self-reflection, you don't have the brain hardware to have an observant mind. You physiologically can't do it unless you have a calm body. And there are mindfulness practices out there that stay digital, that stay cognitive. And that is at best, that is a brute force, moderately efficient to inefficient way of doing it. Conversely, good mindfulness is really bodyfulness. I hope that the name gets changed, because that's what it is. You're not doing mindfulness, you're doing bodyfulness. You're developing that interoceptive capacity. So when I am, oops, let me not get to skills yet. So I'll back up here. We'll stay on this slide for a second. So the way I teach this to my clients is the way that I'm going to do it with you. I tell all my clients, I look at them and I say, I'm afraid of you. I perceive you as threat. For you watching this, wherever you're watching this, I am perceiving, even though I can't see you right now, I'm looking at a little green dot on my iMac. But I am perceiving that little green dot as a threat. Why am I perceiving threat staring at a computer? Why am I perceiving threat sitting with my client? And I ask my clients that. And they get all scared. They start trying to take care of me. You're okay? I'm not going to do anything. Yeah, I know. I got that. But I still perceive threat. With all your assurances that you're not going to attack me, and I believe that, I still perceive you as a threat. Why do I perceive you as a threat? And then, they start after I've talked a little bit about what I've talked about, they start going, well, maybe you're afraid I'm going to like judge you or be critical of you or something like that. Why would I be afraid of the green dot? Well, the answer to that is the only reason a human being perceives threat where there is no danger. It's not because of what is coming. It's not because of out there. It's because of back there. It's because painful past learning is intruding into the perceptual system of the present. And so I've looked at this green dot before. I've been on stage before. I have gotten a good deal of critical feedback from that. I've had people be pretty antagonistic with me. I do a lot of training and have had some painful experiences standing in front of audiences. I've had, with my clients, I've seen, 12,000 clients in 35 years. And think of any of those have been some painful experiences? You betcha. And all of that painful past learning is now, I'm looking through all of those at my client. And it's all, and I'm perceiving them as threatening. And I'm always going to perceive you as threatening. Oops. My thing just, I was rendering the other video. So let me stop share and then bring that back up. Oh, cool. That worked. So I perceive everybody as threatening. Every human being. And, if you want to be really notice how much perceived threat that you have, watch what's happening in your body while you're around your partner, your significant other, the person that you have chosen to love. And you think that after being with them for a while that it would get less, but it doesn't. It gets even greater as it increases in perceived threat over a lifespan. And that's really interesting. And for those of you that want to rip the mask off of that and start understanding why and how that's true, you can read some of David Snarsh's work, Passionate Marriage. Is that for a lot of us, the most perceivedly dangerous person on the planet is somebody who knows us better than we want to be known. And most of our partners know us better than we want to be known, and we perceive them as threatening, and hence a lot of instinctual fighting or flying, aggression or avoidance in marital relationships. And when you start getting this, my buddy Jim, who is a physician, and he's one of the folks that I've taught to be a co-facilitator of the resilience, because as I said earlier, that physicians have a hard time hearing this from mental health professionals. So I've had to train some physicians to do this. And when we were working through this material, his wife was doing it. We were kind of taking it from mental health to make it for physicians, and he was working on it. He's the coordinator of that project. And his wife was with him, and they started practicing this, and they'd get in conflict and then say, so what's the perceived threat right now? And he just, 9 years later, he says that's really had a powerful impact on how much that has dissipated conflict with us. And that's kind of cool. So what I'm trying to do here, and the point that I'm trying to make, is that when I'm teaching self-regulation, I'm trying to make it not therapist-client, but peer-to-peer. I'm showing them that I've got to work on this too. So I'm perceiving there's a threat, and I am constantly working on regulating my autonomic nervous system while I am with you. And to demonstrate that is, so right now, my attention is, if a client was here, I would say, what's happening right now is, right now my attention is fully on you. Right now, my attention is fully on that green dot. and I'm looking at that green dot. All of my attention is focused on I'm seeing some kind of anthropomorphization of you out there right now that's watching this. And I'm perceiving you looking at me, and that is threatening, perceivedly threatening. And my attention is totally on you right now. But right now, even though I'm still looking at you, my attention's in my own body. And I'm noticing what muscles are constricted. I'm releasing the constriction of those muscles. Bink, and my attention's right back on you. Boop, boop. And I did that in 1 or 2 seconds. Without breaking eye contact, without doing anything other than just intentionally moving my attention off of the environment into my own body, scanning it, doing the interoception, and then finding muscles that are indeed constricted, releasing those, and then the attention right back on you. And that's the way I do that with my clients. And then I go on and I'll talk about something else, and we'll go on to the next thing. And, 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 minutes pass, and I do it again. And I'm looking at you, and then I take my attention back to my own body, and I notice it being nice and comfortable and relaxed, right? Right? I'm tightened back up. Why am I tightened back up? Why wouldn't I just be able to set it and forget it? I just relaxed, and shouldn't it just stay that way? Well, no, I'm an animal. And my body, what's not changed? You're still here. My learning history is the same as it was. I'm still perceiving a threat. I'm diminishing it. I'm desensitizing it. I'm getting better and better and better, and less and less distressed the more that I do this, but it's still there. And so I have to be in this dialectic process. And in doing that, I'm able to continue to be in pretty high functioning neocortical. My brain's working. I'm able to say what I mean and mean what I say without saying it mean. I'm able to remember the organization of this material without consulting my notes constantly. I'm able to be in a relational process with you even though you're not here. And in order for me to continue to do that, I got to start managing what's within my control, my arousal. And I constantly, and since I'm constantly in a perceived threat, what's happening is that I've got, I live in an animal. I'm an animal. I am a digital system grafted on meat. And, I've got a friend of mine who's a philosopher. He's like really a philosopher. He hangs out at Starbucks and he philosophizes. He's got a Ph.D. in philosophy. He writes. And we've had some really interesting conversations. And one of my favorite quotes from him is that I'm both the beast and its rider. That's pretty cool. And my beast wants me to kill you or run away from you. But Eric wants something different than my beast wants. My beast is, when it's threatened, when the threat response system is activated, the beast becomes figural. It is in control. It is increasing in energy. And Eric is dissipating. And I've got 15 years, more than that, between 15 and 20 years of my professional career, is that the way that I managed myself was I took that beast and I just spurred it and pushed it and manhandled it and brute forcedly, aggressively pushed my animal through the day, confronting all those situations that were scary. And it damn near killed me. I ended up with compassion fatigue so badly, it almost killed me. And, I've got that t-shirt now. I have that merit badge. I don't need any more of it. So I'm more interested in doing this work and having some joy from it. And to do that, is once I calm the beast, once I release the muscles, then the beast is happy to do whatever it is that Eric wants to do, because there's nothing, as long as I keep the beast fed and watered and, have a little bit of play, then the beast is fine. And Eric's able to go on and do his mission, riding the beast. So that's the way that this stuff works. And I explain something like this to my clients. Is I want to do this in real time with them to be transparent that I'm working on this while you're working on this, and that we are doing this together, that this is a collaborative process that we both have to do. And I think that's a really important thing, that I not come in and that I got this, and that now I'm going to teach you because I have mastery of it. I'm a little further down the road, but it's still an ongoing discipline process. And what I've found is about 200 times a day, if a person does that dialectic of checking, moving away from the environment back into themselves, doing the interoception, doing the acute relaxation, and then back to the activities of their life, 200 times a day, stress symptoms fall off the table, that they are beginning to now live without stress symptoms. More than that for optimization. So, it kind of works in a couple of different ways. When we get into, this is the last piece of the training of the antecedents for doing forward-facing trauma therapy. And when we get into the next capsule, I'm going to just introduce you to the whole process. And one of the tools that I use when I do forward-facing trauma therapy is something called the Satisfaction with Life Scale. And what's cool about that is that there's the three different, whatever score that I get from my client, you can attenuate forward-facing trauma therapy to optimization, to coping and enhancing coping and resilience, to stabilization if they are significantly impaired. So it works on three different levels. And it all is this process. So when I started, I guess that this is now the time to change. When I started teaching this 20 years ago, it was all technical. I was a technocrat. And I had one way to teach to do self-regulation. And if you weren't doing it that way, you weren't doing it right. And as human beings, when they are not constantly in their threat response system or want to do, I have evolved. Took me 20 years, but it's a pretty flat curve, but it's still enough of those days, 7,000 days, I started getting it. And that there is no right way. There is no external kind of positivistic way to do that, that is empirically the best way. There's your way. And I want to start with this understanding. Anytime you are becoming aware of any muscle in your body that is tight, and you are releasing the tension in that muscle, you are practicing self-regulation. And the more that you do it, as you get that number up to 50, 100 times a day, what's going to happen spontaneously is that you are developing interoception, which means you are living more and more and more of your conscious time in your body. You are making friends with your body. You are starting to recognize the signals you're much more awareness of when you are dysregulated. And so the more you do it, the better you get at it. And you will learn, you're going to make friends with your body. You're going to be able to live in your body instead of dissociating out from it and practicing somatic dissociation. So what I've found is a significant percentage of, I work with two populations. I work with people that have complex PTSD, and I work with really high functioning physicians and advanced degree professionals developing resilience. Two really different groups of people. And some folks already have the skill. And so in teaching self-regulation, I have moved away from doing it technically and now do it much more organically. And so the very first thing that I ask my clients, whoever they are, the thing I'm going to ask you right now is I'm going to ask you, take 5 seconds and just scan your body and notice any muscles that are constricted, and completely in those 5 seconds, release those muscles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Were you able to restore yourself to comfort in those 5 seconds? If the answer is yes, then it's always fun to say this. Then what you know now is that you now know how to never experience stress again for the rest of your life. You've already demonstrated you have the skill. You were able to do the interoception. You were able to do the acute relaxation. That's all it takes. You did it. But what's not happened, what you've never had the experience of, is nobody's ever coached you to now go intentionally develop that state while you're confronting high demand situations, while you're confronting situations that you perceive as threatening. Because what you've done instinctually, every one of those high demand situations, you brute forced your way into that. So to my clients that are able to say, yeah, I was able to get myself to comfort and relaxation, I ask this question. I say, I wonder what would happen if you left my office today and you spent the next week confronting every single situation in your life that you perceive as threatening in that relaxed body state. I wonder how that would change things in your life. And my clients go, I don't know. And I say, me either. Would you be willing to try? And come back and report to me what was different during the time or the times that you were able to get and stay in a relaxed muscle body versus the time or times that you forgot or you were unable to? Would you be willing to just try that as an experiment over the next week? And every single one of my clients say, yeah. And then they come back and the very first thing that they say is, I say, well, how'd that go? And they say, well, I forgot it almost every time. I mean, thousands of times. I just didn't even think about it. And I go, yeah, me too. What about the times that you were able to do it? Tell me what was different. And here's where the miracle is. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from clients and from workshop participants, and they go, well, I went in my daughter's room and it was messy. And it was the first time I didn't ever yell. This is the first time ever that I didn't yell at her. I was going out to dinner with my husband and he did the thing that he always does. And instead of criticizing him and confronting him, I just relaxed the muscles of my body and I realized how much I love this man. That's the type of stuff you hear. And getting to facilitate that is about as sweet as it gets for me. To get to witness and hear those stories of one freaking session. Things are changing. It's pretty cool. It's pretty sweet. And this is what I want to set up. That's the dynamic that I want to set up. So I'm going to move through some other skills, but we start with the most organic. And if they got, I'm going to teach them some other skills, and I'm going to absolutely teach this one here. And it's the most technical one. Depending on, these down here are more technical. But once they get it, once they get that they are are able to, that they're able to have a felt sense. That's what you got to do in your office with your client, is that they need to have a felt sense of being inside of a comfortable, a released and relaxed muscle body, of what it feels like. You got to anchor that state before they can recreate it as they go forward in their lives. So that's what I'm doing in this session, is making sure that we get that. When we get that, then I want to, oh, you did it. Cool. Memorize this, because this is the pathway to your recovery, is recreating this 10 million times over the rest of your life, of coming back to this over and over and over and over again. And, you know, it takes discipline. And what's really interesting is that the higher functioning my clients, the less they're willing to do this. It's just really kind of interesting to me. That's why I love working with trauma survivors. You show a trauma survivor how they can not suffer, they are the ones that are willing to implement. They're the ones that are willing to turn this into a discipline. So the next skill, let's move on to that. That was the wet noodle. That's what I kind of call that. That just releasing in a general way. Now we're going to get a little bit more technical. This is still really organic. And the next one is, you have, and this is fun, you have a muscular system and you have a skeletal system. What's the difference? What's the purpose of a muscular system? What's the purpose of a skeletal system? Muscular is locomotion, autonomic function. Skeletal system is support. This is your meat. This is your bones. You don't need your meat for support. Said differently, your skeletal system is perfectly engineered to hold all your meat. You do not need to have constricted muscles, chronically constricted muscles, to sit or stand in your body. You got to constrict them every once in a while. You know, you start sliding over, you got to correct, but not chronic. Just quickly readjusting. Your skeletal system is how you get to be supported. So to do the difference, I say, touch your elbow. That's your skeleton. Now touch your forearm. Squeeze your forearm. That's your muscular system. Feel the difference? Hard, less hard, pliable, not pliable. What I'm going to ask you to do for the next 5 seconds is I'm going to ask you to transfer the responsibility of supporting you, whether you're sitting, I guess probably everybody that's watching this is sitting somewhere, but even if you're standing, you can do it. To transfer all of the responsibility for the support of your body to your muscular, to your skeletal system. That you're just going to notice that you're going to kind of have your feet on the floor if you want to. You're sitting on your sit bones, your spine's lined up, your clavicle, shoulders, and you're all the way up your neck. All of that is lined up. And then just completely release all the muscles and let your skeletal system do all of the support. Go ahead and trust completely. If you've been watching this for a while, you've been sitting in that same chair, it's probably not going to fall in the next 5 seconds. But I want you to take 5 seconds to just trust, put totally your weight on your skeletal system, and that skeletal system is perfectly supported by whatever piece of furniture that you're sitting on. And release for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. How many of you were able to find yourself, or able to find yourself in a comfortable body right now? Would you be willing to, yeah. One more time, just do that one more time. Completely release. transfer over to your skeletal system. Trust your skeletal system to hold your body. 2, 3, 4, 5. Does that feel nice? Would you like to have that for the rest of your life? It's available to you. You just demonstrated to me you have the skill. You can recreate that at any time you'd like. So, next skill. This is one that this is the only self-regulation skill. I was going to get a tissue, but it turns out I got a handkerchief. That this is the only one that doesn't. It should be used tandemly with interoception, but it's possible to do it without interoception. And this is a technique stolen from Special Forces. This is a skill that that Grossman talks about in his book, that they teach Special Forces men and women when they're doing whatever other combat skill that they're doing, and they're about to target a weapon. And most of you can kind of guess that it's really important to be in a relaxed muscle body while you're targeting a weapon, because any sympathetic dysregulation here is going to cause micro movements, and the micro movements are going to, a half a millimeter off here is feet or yards off target downrange. So being able to be in a regulated autonomic nervous system while you are in combat, and especially targeting weapons, is really important. So one of the things that they teach those Special Forces soldiers to do is, before targeting the weapon, is to pay attention for a few seconds to the peripheral vision. And peripheral vision is a brute force way to get your autonomic nervous system out of sympathetic into parasympathetic. Because if you've talked to any police officers or any law enforcement or any combat veterans who have ever been in a firefight, all of them will describe to you what happens with vision. It becomes tunnel. That's what happens when a person's in threat, is that vision constricts and hyper focuses on whatever the perceived threat is. And when you force your vision to widen back out, when you force the aperture back out to entertain periphery, what you're doing is that you're not letting the sympathetic nervous system close that down. You're actually pushing it into a relaxation response. So this is a good tool for alpha men who are not much interested in learning the interoception, at least not in the beginning. So it's one that I kind of always have in my back pocket. I don't teach this it's very infrequent that I use it, but it's there, and I want to show it because it's a cool tool for if you got nothing else that works. So the way that I teach this is I ask my client to focus on some dot in the near distance on the wall, something that's at about eye level or a little bit above, and just hyper focus on that dot for 5 seconds. And so you're just really focused on that dot. And then for the next 5 seconds, allow your vision to blur. Allow that dot to get a little bit fuzzy while you are becoming less focused on it. And then you can do it helps, but you can you don't have to do it this way. You can just now, instead of, because what I got you doing was pointed focus. Now what we're going to do is open up the aperture. So one of the ways that you can do that is to put your fingers out here at about 70 degrees from each side of your face. And with your right eye, you're paying, without moving your eyes are still fixated, but you're widening out the aperture of your eyes. Instead of it closing down, which you were doing, which was what was happening when you were hyper-focused on that dot, you're now not even paying attention to what's in front of you. You're paying attention to, with your right eye, is looking out here to the right, and simultaneously your left eye is paying attention out into the periphery. So you're widening out your peripheral vision. And go ahead and do that either with your fingers out here or just intending your vision out to the periphery, and do that for the next 5 seconds and notice what happens in your body. while you're attending to your periphery, while you're focused and intentionally directing your attention to your periphery. 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know about you, but I get a pretty profound relaxation response from that. And it's a really cool tool, especially for health and mental health professionals. Mental health professionals especially. First 15 years of my career, if you were my client, this was the way that I worked with you, was that I was just constantly hyper-focused on your countenance. And I was just, kind of constantly like this, without once doing that breakaway, without once doing interoception during the whole time, the whole 50 minutes that you were in my office. We got done with the session, I shook your hand, you walked out the door, and I went, whew. I didn't even breathe the whole time that my clients were in there. And today, now I can look at my client, totally focused on their countenance. I'm looking at the green dot. I'm looking at you right now, totally focused on that. And right now, you have no awareness at all that my attention is not on that green dot anymore. It's not on you. It's out here. And I can just, while I'm doing that, I can just feel this release of energy in my body. And I do that for 4 or 5 or 6 seconds. And then I take my attention back on the green dot, back on you. And what I've done is, if I do that 6 or 8 times throughout an hour session, is that I have consistently interrupted sympathetic nervous system dominance. So there's that one. Oh, let me back up. Because there's one more that I need to do before we get to that. It's diaphragmatic breathing. And this one's touch and go. It can be diaphragmatic. It can be regulated breathing. It's breathing into a count, breathing out to a count, square breathing. It's conscious and intentional breathing. The reason why I'm slow to use breathing, for people that already have the skill, it's a great one. It works great for a lot of folks. The problem is that in learning the skill, in people that are totally somatically dissociated, trying to use breathing, what happens is it takes 20 or 30 seconds to get a relaxation response doing regulated or diaphragmatic breathing. So it's more of a relaxation strategy, and a wonderful one, than it is a self-regulatory strategy. Now, taking a deep breath in the middle of your work and being able to do that that's great. If you can remember to do it and you can stay engaged in the activities of daily living. When I teach diaphragmatic breathing, I teach it in a really simple and elegant way, and it takes 5 seconds to learn how to diaphragmatically breathe, of what it feels like. And let me just show you that you can teach your clients this and use this. It's a really nice way to teach your clients what diaphragmatic breathing feels like. So I have them lace their fingers together here in front of their face, lean back in their chair, put their hands behind their head, and pull their elbows back as far as they can. And then notice what happens with your breathing. And what you'll notice is that you can no longer, you tell a trauma survivor to take a deep breath, and here's what they do. They go, and the breathing has all the muscle has been up here, while the abdominal and pelvic muscles have stayed in chronic constriction. What we're trying to do is get the abdomen to release, those abdominal muscles to release. That's what diaphragmatic breathing does. And to get those abdominal muscles to release, when you put your hands behind your head and pull your elbows back, is that it forces your breath down into your belly. You got to move your belly to be able to inflate your lungs. And that's a cool way to show them what it feels like to be able to do that. Okay, now the final one is, this was the one that I used to be a fascist about, that if 15 years ago, I would have said that if you're not doing this, you're not self-regulating. And now, you know, what you saw is that any way you're doing it, it's okay. You're going to ultimately end up. You keep practice. If it's your neck muscle that's tight and you are constantly becoming aware of your neck muscle and you're releasing that neck muscle, what's going to happen in 2 weeks is you're going to have a felt sense of your core muscles. You're going to develop interoception. So that's why I'm just fine with you starting wherever you start. But if you're going to start that process today, let's get the most bang for the buck. And I will still say that however you want to do it, it's fine. You do it any way that you want to. And whatever way is right for you is right for you. But if you want to do it in the best and most efficient way, then escuchen bien. And the way that I teach this one is I ask you to hold your hands out, palms up, and I'm going to ask you to put your hands under your butt for just a second. And feel those two sit bones that you're sitting on. And those are called the ischial tuberosities. And here are the ischial tuberosities. They're right, where are they? Yeah, right there, sit bones. Feel those, touch those solidly. And then, and you know what? I always say this when I do the training. I bet every one of you watching this, just put your hands under your butts. And that is a really good demonstration of how powerful the therapeutic relationship is, because I just asked a whole bunch of advanced degree people to put your hands under your butts, and you all did it. That's kind of humorous a little bit, but it's also telling. That's kind of, I mean, you know, what would happen if you went up to the street and said, you walked into a restaurant and somebody's sitting down and say, put your hands under your butt and feel your two ischial tuberosities. How willing would they be to do it? Not very much. But once you have a therapeutic relationship, you get to be able to use that in ways to help people to change. Now, next here, I'm going to stand up and see how this works, is I'm going to ask you to touch these bones here. And this is called, these are the iliac crest. Right there. It's your hip bones that stick out. And touch those solidly. And then release. And what you've just done is that you made a touch memory in your body for 4 points. 1, 2, 3, 4. What I'm going to ask you to do now is to imagine, let me get this out of the way here. 4 points. And I'm going to ask you to imagine all 4 of those lines, all 4 of those dots connecting. So you got a straight line here from this bone to this bone, straight flat line. You got a straight diagonal line down the side from this bone to this bone. You got a straight flat line across the bottom and a straight diagonal line back up the other side from this bone to this bone. And when you connect all those, what you end up with is a two-dimensional plane that, whether you're sitting or whether you're standing, sits in your body at about a 40, 45 degree angle, like that. And when you think about, and you can do this sitting or standing, it doesn't matter. When you think about where that plane at its diagonal cuts across, what it's doing is that it's cutting across all of the muscles of your pelvis, all the muscles between your waist and your thighs. This plane is doing a diagonal slice of that. So what I'm going to ask you to do for the next 20 seconds is I'm going to ask you to allow that square to expand in all 4 directions so that there is no clenching. Didn't see that happen. I went through the slide set and it was not doing that when I proofed it. No clenching of any of the muscles in the middle of that square. I'm going to ask you to do that for the next 20 seconds. Just allow that whole area of your body to just widen out and completely soften, completely release. And for 10 more seconds, focusing on those muscles in the very center of that square, your core muscles, and opening those and releasing those, softening that whole area of your body. Congratulations. You have parasympathetic dominance right now. It is physiologically impossible to have a stress response while you have released and relaxed pelvic floor muscles. And I've taught that to hundreds of thousands of people, and I've gotten hundreds of thousands of looks like that you're probably on your face right now. I'm going to ask you to do it one more time. Just completely release those muscles in your pelvis. Completely soften. And while you are softening the muscles of your pelvis and allowing that square to expand so that there's no constriction of any of those muscles, report to me what you notice happening in your body. Continue to release those muscles. And what do you notice happening with your breath? What do you notice happening with your shoulders? With your feet? And what you'll notice is that all the other muscles in your body released. And that is why the pelvic floor muscles are the ones that are, if you want to maximize your effort in self-regulation, releasing the pelvic floor muscles, you get a total systemic relaxation. It's the only group of muscles that you can do that. You can't relax your feet muscles and spontaneously have your hand muscles relax. You can't relax your thigh muscles and spontaneously have your neck muscles relax. But if you completely release your pelvic floor muscles, what you get is a whole systemic wash. You get an immediate restoration of comfort in your body. See if that doesn't happen. Attention on the pelvis, release that, and tell me if you're not completely in a relaxed muscle body. It's pretty cool, that. Now, I work with a lot of folks that have complex PTSD, and folks that have high A scores. Started their life with chronically constricted pelvises. If you have stress, your pelvic floor muscles are constricted. 100% of the time. Notice for the rest of your life that you'll just check in on that. Don't take my word for it. Just go do that experiment. When you're driving, notice what the muscles in your pelvis are doing, and they will be constricted. Being in a chronic state of constriction is painful. And people who are in chronic pain, what they learn to do when they don't have analgesia is they learn to dissociate their awareness away from that pain. And they cope with that pain by somatic dissociation. And 25 years of being dissociated out of their bodies, out of that area, not having a felt sense, and especially those clients that have had sexual trauma, is an area of perceived threat, and they completely are disconnected from it. So what we want to help them to do is to get an anchoring, a felt sense of that. And so for folks that have sexual trauma, one of the things that I say to them is how much longer would you like to allow that your perpetrator to be in control of that area of your body? Would you be interested in reclaiming that part of your body as your own? And if they say yes, I'd say, I would love to help you with that. If they say no, I don't push it. And we work on muscles that they want to work on. But again, the ability to release the pelvis is going to give you a much more potent systemic relaxation. So I advocate that you practice with this a little bit and see how well it works for you. I wanted to, saw that I got a little bit, I had an intrusion there for a second, and this bears speaking about here now. Is people that can't self-regulate. one of the ways that they instinctually cope with chronic perceived threat is they use absorption dissociation. Remember the loss of the mohawk, total absorption in the environment. So if folks can find activities that are intense enough that get them out of their body, then they don't feel how uncomfortable they are. The problem with that is it's like addiction, is that it requires constant feeding. And people that are using absorption as an anxiolytic complain of something pretty frequently. They will in your office, you'll hear them complain. It's kind of it's a red flag, and it tells me that they need self-regulation skills, is boredom. And anytime you hear somebody complain of boredom, what boredom is the inability to be comfortable inside of your own skin. Boredom is the need to have an activity that is intense enough, that draws your attention to it, so that you are dissociated away from the discomfort that's in your body. Once you learn to self-regulate, you're never bored again. That there's just too much to do, that you could always find something. There's always something that you can engage in. And if there's not, then you can just be comfortable being right here. You don't compulsively need to have some external management of your distress. So to make this process as technical as I'm going to get, for those folks that, cool, let me put a plug in. For those folks that are really struggling with felt sense of their body, it's so hard to do this because it's backwards. So there's the right turn there. And I'm starting to get that. Now let me get by Dave Berselli. He has developed these exercises called TRE, trauma releasing exercises. They are the first evidence-based nonverbal treatment of trauma that has demonstrated effectiveness. It's a set of exercises that lead to what he identifies as a psoadic release. Psoas muscle is the muscle that its inception is lower back, and inner thigh. It's the muscle that lets you kick. It's the muscle that lets you do that. And for trauma survivors, what Dave found was that they have chronic constriction with those muscles. And he's built a set of exercises that fatigue all of the kind of peripheral muscles, and that it produces an involuntary release, a tremorous release of the psoas muscle. It's really cool. It's weird. It's weird stuff. It feels weird, but it's just crazy. I just love, like, he's just the sweetest, kindest, soft-spoken, and the alpha males of the military love him and his protocol because it's exercise and it's not talking. It's a way to treat trauma by doing exercise, and it's pretty cool. And I recommend TRE. Dave's website is traumaprevention.com. I think traumaprevention.org, traumaprevention.com. It's one of those. It's not here on the DVD, but he's got a DVD that walks you through, and I've given away probably 30 of those over the past, he's been doing this for 15 years or so. And my clients that really struggle with interoception, and especially with a felt sense of pelvic floor muscles, it's a really excellent adjunct to teaching that skill. But what I try to do in session with folks that don't have a felt sense of that area of their body and that are willing to try, then I have them do Jacobsen relaxation with the pubiococcyx muscle. Anybody know? Can you guess what that's called in English, Jacobsen Relaxation with the pubiococcyx muscle. In English, that's a Kegel exercise, or Kegel, depending on how you pronounce that. And so what I have my clients do is I say, you don't need to tell anybody you're doing this, but what I'm going to ask you to do is, with me here over the next 5 seconds, I'm going to ask you to think that you were mid-urination and you wanted to stop urination. Think about the muscle that you'd have to squeeze to stop the flow. And to just squeeze that muscle right now as tightly as you can for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now release that muscle completely. Take a nice deep breath. And on the exhale, release it profoundly. And what's funny is that when I have my clients do that breath, a lot of them, you'll see them shiver, that they've had that muscle constantly constricted, that they have an involuntary tremor of releasing that tension. And that's always something kind of sweet to see that happen. And I say, now memorize that sensation. And that's what I'm going to ask you to practice for the next week. I'm going to ask, would you be willing to practice release? That's the muscle. Memorize that sense of relaxation. You can go ahead and do it one more time. 2, 3, 4, 5, and then release. Now, you don't need to tighten up every time. You can for the next few days if that helps you to reference that muscle, but that's the muscle that you want to get released. What do you notice happens in your body when that muscle is completely released? You're comfortable, aren't you? Yeah. Do you like that? You can recreate that any situation for the rest of your days. I'd love to help you. That's what we're going to be focused on if you want to continue working with me, is that we're going to do some stuff here in therapy, but what I'm going to be asking you to do between sessions is starting to confront all of those perceived threats, those tens of thousands of perceived threats that you're going to perceive between now and next week when you see me again. I'm going to ask you to continue to do that in a relaxed muscle body and come back and report to me on how well it's working. So in whatever way that you can, I now go, when I do this in live courses, I have some exercises that I do dyadically, and I have folks kind of do 2 nonverbal ones and 2 verbal ones, and they're pretty cool. They're a minute apiece. But for those of you watching this and doing this course, you know, whether that's with a DVD or internet, I'm not sure, streaming, I'm not sure which I'm going to do that, or both. What I'm going to ask you to do for the next 60 seconds is I'm going to ask you to just silently look at me in the eye for the next 60 seconds while keeping the muscles in your body completely relaxed. For 60 seconds, we'll just be silent. Whatever you're doing, just stay silent and do not waver your attention. If you find your attention wavering, refocus back on your screen so you're looking at me. And I'm going to do the same with you. And for the next 60 seconds, I'm going to ask that you look into my eyes. And go. Keep those bodies relaxed. and stop. So I'm wondering, while we did that for that 60 seconds, how many times did you notice the muscles in your body tightening back up? For me, it was several. And I was paying attention to the green dot, and then I was doing that back and forth, the dialectic of attention to the world and then back to my body. And as I came back to it, I noticed that especially my pelvic floor muscles had begun to constrict again. And I released them back to a comfortable body, back to my attention out there. And then my attention was all on that green dot. And then I checked back and the same thing over and over and over. 4 or 5 times during that 60 seconds. So if your muscles were tightened up, were you in any danger during this activity? No, you weren't. So why were you perceiving threat? And when I do this in a workshop, sometimes folks say, oh, because it was intimate, and I felt vulnerable, or I didn't know if I was doing it right. And I go, those are all really good guesses. They're the wrong answer, but they're good guesses. Why are you perceiving threat? And the answer is always the same as it's always been. Is the reason why we perceive threat where there is no danger is because of painful past learning. So something about eye contact or something about the forced intimacy of that situation, what that's doing is that's activating painful past learning, and it's coming forward and it's hijacking your perceptual system, causing you to perceive threat during this activity where there is none. We're not even in the same place. I'm not even there. I mean, this is recorded on what is today, 29th of July, 2017. There's no way that there's any danger. Yet many of you watching this at home perceived threat while you were looking into my eyes. That is to demonstrate how ubiquitous this perceived threat process is. It's just woven into everything. It's constant that we are perceiving threat. And this was as artificial as it could be. Again, we're not even in the same time. Yet, many of you who watch this found the muscles in your body constrict. What do you think's happening when the person sitting across from you is looking at you and says to you, I've just been raped? What's going on in your body when that happens? What's going on in your body when the person sitting across from you looks at you and says, I don't think you're helping me very much? What's going on in your body when the person sitting across from you says, I think I want to kill myself? And what you'll probably start to appreciate is how much constriction and how much time you spend with the people with whom you work, or in whatever context, in a threat response system. And we've talked about the impact that has upon you is that it'll kill you. Chronic sympathetic nervous system dominance will kill you. It will make you suffer a long, long time, though, before you get the relief of death. I want you to have some appreciation of what the impact that your dysregulated autonomic nervous system has upon the people with whom you work. And the further you need to look no further than to get this, then what happens when you're around somebody who's anxious? What happens when you're around somebody who is relaxed? And you have just discovered the single most important clinical intervention for working with somebody who is traumatized. is your ability to get in and stay in a regulated autonomic nervous system. And when you do that, their little mirror neurons are reading you, your voice tones, your micro movements, and you now are safe. And what starts happening is that you're doing a process that's being called in the literature now co-regulation. As I dial down, you feel me in a relaxed body. And what starts happening is no matter how jacked up you are, as you sit with me for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, your autonomic nervous system comes into regulation as well. And think about that with herd animals. I mean, you know, what happens in a herd if the one over here gets scared, it inflames the whole herd. Conversely, as you are a reagent in that solution of relaxation, you begin to dissipate that charge from your clients. Single most important intervention for any trauma treatment, including forward-facing trauma therapy. And what that means is that if you're going to practice this with other folks, is that you need to be, they can't do this stuff if you're dysregulated. So it's crucial that if you want to be a good trauma therapist, whether that is a good trauma healer, let me say it in those words, because, you know, forward-facing trauma therapy can be done by somebody who is a non-clinical helper. If you want to be somebody who is a healer, you need to be in a regulated autonomic nervous system. We live in self-healing organisms. Your system knows how to heal itself, physically and spiritually, psychologically. But healing doesn't happen in the threat response system. Threat response system on, then everything is about survival. For a system to begin to repair, we got to get it out of the threat response system so that now the repair system can start to have some airtime. So that we got to help our clients to get into giving some airtime to the parasympathetic system. And as they do that more and more and more, what you see is that they begin to write. And that's beautiful. Is that it needs very little intervention from me. Is that your system knows how to heal. It's just that we got to get it into the healing system, which means that we got to help our clients to regulate while they are in the context of perceived threats. And finally, what I'll say about this is, what do you think? What does trauma do to a person in terms of the way they perceive the world? Is that there are millions of these. And you see that now, as I empower my clients to go out into the world and to begin to practice a skill while confronting all of the boxes of painful past learning, then what we're doing is diminishing the intensity of this. This is how you practice reciprocal inhibition, is relaxed body, confrontation. And that's where we're going to be headed next. So, in the words of one of my mentors, Forrest Gump, that's all I have to say about that. I don't know how to... Oh, there we go.